Hello, Pyromaniac fans out there. This is PyromaniacMo coming to you with another interview. Just to remind everybody, we've got a draft kit rolling out now. We're constantly updating that. We're shooting for roughly 5 updates before fantasy football season officially kicks off. As of right now, we've got 22 tabs of fantasy goo on there for you, and we're always making it better. I'm working on my revisions to part 2 right now. Plus, we've got the great content always available on pyromaniac.com, where we got the podcasts coming to you from the crew every week, 52 weeks a year. And soon we'll be launching Pyro Pro, which will be all sorts of in-depth insight into the fantasy world. Today I've got something new for you. I recently heard about Sports Injury Predictor, and I've got Jake Davidow with me. He is on Twitter at Jake Davidow. That's JakeDavidow. Jake, how are you, my man?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and unfortunately for the viewers, they can only see my ugly mug, but we have your wonderful voice and your wonderful insight. So tell us, first off, how can fans find you?
Sure. You can find out more about the product on our website, sportsinjurypredictor.com. We've got some really useful features there right now where you can search by player name. If you go to the player search function there, and you can get a full breakdown of their injury history and whether, what sort of risk that they have for the upcoming season. And we're on Twitter as well at Injury Predictor. And we've got a Facebook page, also I think Sports Injury Predictor. But it's mainly, Twitter's where we're most active, and then obviously all the good stuff is on the website.
Yeah, and it is really good stuff. Instead of just saying this term that we're always throwing around, injury prone, you guys basically, if I'm not mistaken, put a quantitative value on a player. So essentially, the statistical likelihood of that player getting injured. Is that basically correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So this idea really started when as you can probably tell by now, I'm not from the United States. I'm originally from South Africa. I came out here a few years ago, and my brother-in-law introduced me to fantasy football, and I was hooked ever since. And it just really interested me how, with all the impact that injury has on the outcome of a team, on the outcome of a player's career, on the outcome of a fantasy team, just how little information there was when you were just trying to do your preseason research, being new to the sport, So that was the first part of the idea was, well, why don't we just have this like central repository where all this information is kept? And then as I started putting together all this information, I started seeing patterns starting to emerge of various like injury patterns. And so I thought, well, I wonder if there's a way that you could predict whether some players are more likely to get injured than others from a purely statistical point of view. And so very similar to what insurance companies do when they figure out whether you're more or less likely to have an accident driving your car in the suburb that you live in. I got a statistician. He built risk models for hedge funds to build a risk model for NFL players that was based on various functions that we tested out, and that every season really assigns injury probability to the pool of players that are at the skill position within the NFL.
And so after diving into all the factors and all the stats, because now you guys have been, how long have you guys been collecting information?
So we started with the current pool, with the pool of players in 2012. So we did all the players that were at, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end, and running back in the 2012 player pool. And then we went all the way back where we can. We even go back to high school, but we definitely get college injuries, and then we get the NFL injuries as well. And so it started 2012, and obviously we brought in the 2013, 2014. Now we have the 2015 class that's in there as well. Some players who were in 2012 have retired since then, but for the most part, it's very current, and it goes back. We've got injuries going back all the way to 2001, in some cases 2002 but it's those players that are in this current pool.
Yeah, I was doing some research on your site, and it for guys that haven't been long in the NFL, I was concerned, well, we're not going to have that much info on there, but you guys really do your homework going back in their college careers. And now that you've done some of the legwork, we always hear the term injury prone, and I don't even know what the hell that means. But what are some red flags in your opinion? What are some things you really find that have more statistical value than other types of injuries?
Yeah, I really hate that term, injury prone. It kind of assumes that there's this there's this player that walks into doors and slips on the carpet and that kind of thing.
Right.
I think that and then along with that label of injury prone comes like factors that are assumed to be just like common knowledge, like previous carries. So DeMarco Murray has had 400 carries previous season. Now he's due to get injured this coming season just because of that. Or the fact things that are players' age is a good one as well. Running backs hit 30 years old and all of a sudden the wheels fall off. So, there aren't any real hard and fast rules, but there are combinations of factors that will play together that will increase the likelihood of injury in some cases and bring it down in other cases, right? And so some of the big things that we find, it's not so much age really, but it's experience in the NFL, and there's an inverse relationship to what you'd expect there to be. So production absolutely drops off the older a player gets, right? I feel that now, not that I'm a professional athlete, but I feel just getting up the couch to get myself a beer is a lot harder than it used to be, right?
Amen.
But actual injury, so for instance, of the 48 players who were in the NFL last year, of the 48 rookies that we tracked, right? Sorry, 42 rookies. I just want to get this stat correct. So of the 42 rookies that we tracked across all the skill positions in the NFL, 48% of those rookies suffered an injury that kept them out of at least one game, right? Whereas if you look at the players who had been in the NFL since 2005, so it's not 42 players there. It's a much smaller pool. I think it's offhand, I think it's like 12 or 13 players, right? Only 25% of those players were injured, right? So there's actually, while players may become less productive over time, they actually get injured less, right? And that's because for several reasons. There may be some football reasons there in that they arrive at camp, just in better shape. They don't participate in training during the week, which keeps them fresher for game day. They get pulled out of games when ordinarily, someone who had a less secure hold in their position maybe would try and play through exhaustion or whatever it is. But from a statistical point of view, there's something called survivor bias. And survivor bias means that, those players who are going to get injured and have their careers, derailed by injury have been injured by the time they've been in the NFL for a particular amount of time. And then those that are left are the ones that have survived and know how to take care of themselves. So, we may think that this class of rookies coming in now, you want a rookie running back on your fantasy team, but the reality is, the less experience that they have in the NFL, the more likely they are to get injured, all things being equal. The other big thing that we found for probability is the concept of how many times a player is going to touch a ball, not how many times they have touched the ball. So, Marshawn Lynch is always brought up as, he's had such a huge workload. He's due for an injury at any given point. But, you can't talk about previous touches and wear and tear, because there's no real way to measure that across the universe of players from a probability perspective, because you're talking about such an elite segment of the football population. You're talking about, if you think of how many thousands and thousands and thousands of people play football, and then how many of those people make it into the NFL, and then of those people that make it into the NFL, to be that good that you're a primary running back for a team means that you have like conditioning that's like out of this world. You're in unbelievable shape. You probably have some genetic predisposition to it. You not only that, but you have access to the best like rehab and medical facilities in the world. You cannot measure previous touches as a way of looking at future injury. What you can use though is the projected touches. So the more times a player is going to touch a football, the more likely they are to get injured, right? And so, if you think about 0 being no injury, 1 being an injury, every time you touch that ball, you're moving towards that 1 point, right? And so, when we look at, you asked just before the show started, you asked, when do your projections come out? Well, our projections come out when the preseason is starting to wind down. That's when we start seeing, how the depth chart is starting to shape out, how the coaching scheme is starting to come into play. Is this going to be a 20 touch a game running back? Is he going to be a 15, 10? Because all of that factors in to how likely a player is going to get injured in the coming season.
And I was amazed at how much you guys look at, what you put into this. The coaching system, as you said, the amount of times they touch the ball, when they've been injured, what type of injury it is. I would imagine as you go along, you learn as you go. So statistically, have you improved every year? For example, how did you do last year compared to the year before?
Absolutely. So what we do is we do a regression test. So what we predicted for the previous year against what we did, like how did things actually turn out, right? And then out of that we tweak and we adjust some of the ways that we weight the different factors that we include, and we try and get more and more accurate every year. So in 2013, basically, if you were in the top 30 percentile chance of getting injured, so if we gave you anywhere between a 70 and a 99.9% chance of getting injured, it was roughly 60% of those players got injured. And then on the other side, right, if you were in from 0 to 30%, right, chance of getting injured, you were only injured, I think it was like 35 or 34% of the time. So there was like a 65% chance that you were actually not going to get injured. So if you think of it just in terms of, if I guess, right, without using, without having a quantitative method of approaching this, then at best you're looking at 50-50, right? This gave you a slightly better chance. It gave you a 60% chance, and so roughly 2 out of 3 times you'd have got it right on whether players would have been injured or not, right? How we did last year with the various adjustments that we made, in that bottom percentage, so the 0.1 to 29.999% chance of players who could get injured, 31% of them were actually injured. So that means that 69% of the time we were correct. They did not get injured. But in that top percentage of players who we considered to be high risk, between 70 and 99.9% of the time, 75% of them were injured. And not only that, but that top band of the 70 to 99.9%, on average, they missed roughly 4 games, right? So it's not just, this player is, could get in, like, has a high chance of getting injured, and so they sit out a game. And so who cares? Who cares if you got a player who's like, Antonio Brown or whatever, is going to hit a home run for you every time he misses one game? So what, right? But what we found is there is a correlation. If you are more likely to get injured, you are more likely to get a more severe injury that's going to keep you out for longer than those players who are in that bottom percentage, where I think the average game missed was one game per injury.
David, I know you got to go here, and I'm going to let you sign off and take a call. We're definitely going to have to sit down and talk again, because there's just so much great stuff to get into. So I'm going to let you sign off, and then I'm going to say my farewell to my listeners. But I really appreciate you being on today, Jake Davidow from Sports Injury Predictor. I can't thank you enough, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
All right, we'll speak again soon, David. Thanks.
Yes.
Once again, guys, that was Jake Davidow. You can follow him at Jake Davidow. That's JakeDavidow. You can also follow his company is at INJURYPREDICTOR, Injury Predictor. And then the website's Sports Injury Predictor. So Pyro fans, we're going to get into this again. I'm going to be talking to Jake again. There is just so much to get into, let alone specific players that we're going to talk about. But as he said, he was basically, the company was 3 for 4 on those high-end guys last year. Every year they increase. And the Pyro take on it, to me, is I'm constantly looking for bits of data, whether it's a touchdown dependency chart that we give you, power in numbers, targets, touches, looks. But now I've got a number that I can quantify. It's not just injury prone. It's something I can put on a guy so that when I'm making my tiers, maybe this is my deciding factor. Maybe when draft day comes and it's down to tier 3 wide receiver and tier 3 running back, if I've got my tier 3 running back highlighted because he's high risk, I might go to the other guy. Or let's say I'm building my team. Just like in the stock market, you're not going to play all low risk stocks. You're not going to make any money that way. But if I'm building my team and I see that I've got a bunch of high risk guys, maybe I got to temper that out, get some low risk guys. Vice versa, take some chances later in the draft if I've built a low injury team. I just think it's fascinating. We're going to talk to David some more. Go check it out for yourself, because there's just so much detail there. And like I said, coaching offenses factor into this. How many games that these guys are going to miss. It's really quite extensive and kind of exciting. Thanks for stopping by. I got several more lined up. We're going to talk to an NFL draftee, a hopeful, coming up next week. And after that, I'm going to talk to one of the main NFL scouts. So stay tuned, stay with us, and keep up the fantasy goo. As always, I'm PyromaniacMo. You can follow me at PyromaniacMo. Pyro's always tweeting out at Pyromaniac. That's PYROMAN1AC. And then you can find our draft kit at our website, pyromaniac.com. Stay tuned as well. We'll be coming out with Pyro Pro, which is just really cool and exciting. As always, you can hear the boys talking it up every week on the podcast. And keep up the fantasy goo. I'll talk to y'all later.